We're about to dive into a story from American crime history that is just as tragic as it is terrifying. It's a case where the simple, universal act of looking for love can actually become a death sentence.
And really, it all comes down to these three things. A simple, horrifying formula that played out over and over again in the late 1940s. This is the story of how hope itself was turned into a weapon.
Just try to imagine it. You put your heart out there, hoping to finally find a partner, to end the loneliness, only to find out you've just walked straight into a predator's snare. Well, for the victims of the Lonely Hearts Killers, that wasn't just some nightmare. It was their devastating reality.
So who were the masterminds behind this unbelievably cruel scheme? Let's pull back the curtain and meet the two people at the very center of this storm, Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck.
This right here, this really gets to the heart of their toxic dynamic. See, they weren't just a pair of killers. They were this lethal combination. On one side, you have Raymond, the smooth-talking, narcissistic con man. And on the other, you've got Martha, who was so emotionally dependent on him that she would do, well, literally anything to keep him. Separately, they were both dangerous. But together, they were a force of pure destruction.
So let's zoom in on Raymond for a second. His background is this kind of cocktail of instability and a pretty serious head injury, something that a lot of people think changed him forever. Whatever the cause, he grew into this master of manipulation, totally obsessed with domination and control, and he used his charm like a finely honed weapon.
And then you have Martha. Her life was really shaped by trauma and this deep, gnawing fear of being abandoned. So when she met Raymond, she saw him as her salvation. Her devotion was just absolute, and she became way more than just a quiet accomplice. She was the enforcer, actively taking part in the whole scam by posing as his sister to help him gain the trust of their targets.
Okay, so how did this deadly duo actually operate? Let's break down exactly how they built their elaborate and fatal trap piece by piece.
This was their playbook, and it is chillingly clear. It was a 5-step process that they basically perfected. First, they'd find their victims through these personal ads in newspapers, the dating apps of their day. Then, Raymond would pour on the charm. Next, Martha would worm her way into the victim's life, cutting them off from anyone who might spot a red flag. Once they got their hands on the money, the final brutal step was elimination. It was a repeatable, horrifying, and tragically effective formula.
So who exactly were they looking for? Well, their targets fit a very specific profile. They preyed on loneliness and trust, going after widows or single women who had their own money, and, this is the crucial part, a deep desire for companionship. These weren't just names to them, they were people with hopes, and those hopes were the very thing Raymond and Martha used as a key to unlock and destroy their lives. And the terrifying thing is, for years this formula worked. They left a trail of missing persons and shattered lives across multiple states. But, like all killers, eventually their luck had to run out. Now, we'll probably never know the true number, but investigators at the time believed it could be as high as 20. 20 people. 20 lives potentially snuffed out by this one couple. It's just a staggering thought, and the real number might honestly be lost to history forever.
And their cruelty really knew no bound. The murders weren't clean or quick, they were brutal, they were personal, often involving beatings and strangulation. This was never just about the money. For them, it was about power and total control.
So their reign of terror lasted for about 4 years. They meet in 47 and they're arrested in early 51. And what brought them down was the disappearance of a woman named Delphine Downing and her young daughter. That case finally put investigators hot on their trail, and the end came really quickly after that. They were executed at Sing Sing prison just a year later.
But the story didn't end with their deaths. Not at all. It left behind this lasting scar, and it raised some deeply disturbing questions about the kind of psychology that could drive a partnership like this. Okay, and this is where the story takes a turn into the truly bizarre. There's a rare psychological phenomenon that might just explain their deadly bond. It's called folie à deux. Now that's French for a madness for two, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a condition where two people, usually in a very close relationship, share the exact same delusion. One person's psychosis literally infects the other, and they just end up reinforcing each other's twisted view of reality. So when you look at them, you can see the perfect storm, right? Raymond's narcissism and his absolute need for control fed directly into Martha's deep-seated dependency and her terror of being alone. Together, they created their own little world with its own set of rules, a world where their violent impulses weren't just accepted, they were encouraged.
And that's exactly why this story is so much more than just a dusty old true crime case. It's a timeless cautionary tale. It shows us that predators are adaptable. They use whatever social tools are available. Back then, it was personal ads. And it also teaches us a really hard lesson, that the most dangerous kind of manipulation often comes disguised as love and affection.
And that brings us, of course, to today. The tools have changed, but that basic, fundamental human need for connection, that's as strong as it has ever been. It really makes you wonder, in our age of dating apps and perfectly curated online profiles, has the lonely hearts trap really gone away, or has it just evolved into something new, and maybe even more insidious?